Matthew Kane was a man who had it all, or so it seemed. Known as a wealthy and successful businessman, he had amassed a fortune that afforded him every luxury imaginable, from sleek, high-end cars to sprawling estates. His wealth appeared limitless, yet it came at a personal cost. Over the years, Matthew had built his empire from the ground up, a journey that left him hardened and skeptical, having faced countless betrayals, broken promises, and questionable dealings along the way. This path to success taught him a harsh lesson: trust was a liability. Surrounded by opulence, Matthew's life should have been enviable, but he often found himself looking over his shoulder, viewing others as either threats or means to an end. His isolation weighed on him more deeply as the years passed, his mistrust and cynicism creating an invisible wall that no amount of wealth could tear down. Despite all his riches, Matthew felt a growing void, questioning if honesty and kindness still existed in the world or if people only showed these traits when they had something to gain. One evening, feeling unusually introspective, Matthew decided to break from his typical routine and visit a small, unassuming diner on the outskirts of the city. The place had a quiet, old-fashioned charm, with faded vinyl booths and dim lighting that reminded him of his early days, when money was scarce, and he was just another young man with big dreams. There, away from his usual lavish settings, Matthew found himself wondering if genuine goodness might still be found in the unlikeliest of places. The question lingered as he observed the waitress who approached him with a warm smile, unaware that his desire to test human honesty was about to be set into motion. Settling into the small diner, Matthew Kane felt an unusual calm as he observed his surroundings. The place was a far cry from the lavish establishments he usually frequented. Here, worn vinyl booths and a modest decor evoked a simpler time and place. As he sipped his coffee, he couldn't help but feel a sense of nostalgia, thinking back to his younger days when money was tight, and ambition was his only luxury. His quiet reflection was interrupted by a young waitress approaching his table. Her name tag read Lily, and she had an effortless warmth about her, a friendly smile, a lightness in her step. She treated him with the same politeness she showed every other customer, seemingly unaware or uninterested in the designer suit and expensive watch he wore. Her demeanor was kind, unforced, and lacking the air of deference he had grown accustomed to from people who recognized his wealth. Lily's genuine manner sparked a curiosity in Matthew, leading him to an impulsive decision. Could her friendliness and politeness be genuine, or was it an act, perhaps in the hope of a generous tip? After finishing his meal, he decided to put her honesty to the test. As he rose from his seat, he deliberately left his wallet on the table and excused himself, heading toward the restroom. His mind raced with possibilities. Would she pocket the cash inside, leave it untouched, or hand it back to him without a second thought? From the restroom, Matthew kept a watchful eye on the dining area, trying to remain inconspicuous. When he returned to his table, his wallet was gone, and he felt a brief surge of disappointment. Had she really taken it? But before he could dwell on this suspicion, Lily approached him with the same bright smile, holding the wallet in her hand. "Sir, I noticed you left this on the table," she said, handing it back to him. Her tone was calm and polite, as though she'd done nothing out of the ordinary. Matthew accepted the wallet, feeling a mix of relief and frustration. He had anticipated, maybe even hoped, that she would fail his test, affirming his belief that honesty was scarce. Instead, Lily's integrity surprised him. Despite his cynicism, he found himself curious about her character. Still, he wasn't entirely convinced. Matthew resolved to return the next day, determined to test her honesty once more, convinced that under different circumstances, her true intentions might reveal themselves. The next evening, Matthew returned to the diner, feeling a sense of resolve as he entered the familiar setting. He ordered his meal, choosing the same booth and glancing around to see if Lily was working. Sure enough, she was there, moving between tables, with her warm smile and effortless kindness. She didn't seem to notice him immediately, her attention focused on a young family seated nearby. He watched as she bent down to chat with the children, her laughter soft and genuine. When Lily finally approached his table, she greeted him with a friendly nod, showing no sign that she recognized him from the previous night. They exchanged a few pleasantries, and she took his order with the same polite attentiveness, showing no special treatment despite his fine clothes and air of wealth. Observing her closely, Matthew felt his curiosity deepen. Was she truly this kind and honest, or was it just a front she maintained for customers? When his meal arrived, Matthew decided it was time to test her once again. This time, he left his wallet deliberately within reach on the table as he excused himself to make a phone call outside. As he stepped into the chilly evening air, he lingered near the window, positioning himself so he could see inside without being noticed. He watched as Lily finished taking an order from another customer and made her way over to his booth. Spotting the wallet, she paused, glancing around the diner as though debating what to do. Matthew felt a flicker of excitement. Perhaps, under this new test and with the opportunity presented so plainly, she would take it this time. His heart quickened as he watched her pick up the wallet and inspect it briefly. But instead of pocketing it, Lily simply placed the wallet behind the counter and returned to serving her other customers as if nothing unusual had happened. When Matthew returned to his seat, Lily approached him with a calm, unreadable expression. She held out his wallet with the same friendly smile. "Sir, you left this on the table again," she said. "Figured you wouldn't want to lose it." Her tone was casual, polite, and utterly unassuming. Matthew thanked her, masking his frustration with a polite nod. How could she be so unwaveringly honest? Had she somehow guessed his intentions, or was she truly this principled? The experience only deepened his intrigue. He left the diner that night with a growing determination to test her further, convinced that somewhere under the right circumstances, her true intentions would finally reveal themselves. Determined to uncover Lily's true intentions, Matthew returned to the diner the following evening with a new plan. This time, he intended to learn more about her life and motivations. He ordered a more elaborate meal, staying longer and engaging in light conversation with her. To his surprise, Lily was open and willing to chat between serving other tables. She shared small details about her life, mentioning that she was putting herself through school while working double shifts to support her family. Her father had recently passed away, leaving her mother ill and relying on Lily as the family's primary source of income. Despite the heavy burden she carried, Lily's optimism never wavered. She spoke with warmth, never complaining about her situation, even though it was evident that her life was far from easy. Listening to her, Matthew felt an unfamiliar pang of sympathy. He was used to people who constantly schemed for their own gain, yet here was someone who, despite every reason to be cynical, remained kind-hearted and genuine. As their conversation wound down, Matthew prepared to carry out his second test. He excused himself, leaving his wallet conspicuously on the table, as if by accident. This time, he stepped outside, watching closely through the window as Lily went about her duties, serving customers and refilling drinks. Eventually, she noticed the wallet lying on the table. Matthew observed her reaction intently, searching for any sign that she might consider keeping it. Lily glanced around the diner, as if contemplating her next move. A flicker of hesitation crossed her face, and Matthew's heart quickened. Given her financial hardships, he thought, surely this moment would reveal her real intentions. But just as he thought she might give in, Lily calmly picked up the wallet and took it to the counter, placing it behind the register for safekeeping. When Matthew re-entered the diner, she approached him again, handing back the wallet with her usual friendly smile. "You left this on the table again, sir," she said. Her tone was light-hearted, as though she hadn't just returned a wallet that could have temporarily eased her struggles. She showed no hint of guilt or desire, only simple politeness and respect. As he took back the wallet, Matthew felt a mixture of relief and frustration. How could she be so unwaveringly honest, even in the face of obvious temptation? It didn't align with his cynical worldview. Convinced that she was somehow hiding her true intentions, he resolved to keep testing her, determined to uncover what he believed had to be her real character. Over the following days, Matthew made the diner his regular spot, returning each evening with new tests designed to uncover Lily's supposed hidden motivations. Each time, he varied his approach, leaving different valuables behind as subtle temptations. One evening, he left a crisp $100 bill beneath his plate. Another night, he forgot his expensive watch on the edge of the booth. He even tried slipping a blank check into the napkin holder, hoping the sight of an unsigned check might tempt her. To his mounting surprise, Lily remained unfazed by these attempts. Each night, she would approach him calmly, handing over whatever he had left behind, her demeanor never shifting from polite professionalism. Each test he devised only seemed to strengthen her reputation in his mind, and it frustrated him. He had expected, almost wanted, her to slip up and confirm his view that everyone had a price, especially when faced with significant financial hardship. But Lily never wavered. Despite himself, Matthew found himself growing more intrigued by her. He began to notice details he hadn't before: the gentle way she greeted each customer, the genuine interest she showed in their stories, and the quiet strength she seemed to carry, even as she worked long hours and dealt with her own personal challenges. This honesty, this unshakable sense of integrity, it was something he hadn't encountered in years, not since his early days in business when he still believed in trust and goodwill. One evening, as he waited for her to bring his change from yet another intentionally excessive tip, he caught himself smiling. She had refused his money each time, taking only what was necessary to cover the meal, never letting her gratitude overshadow her professionalism. It was as though she was quietly reminding him of a value he had once held dear, but had lost along the way. Driven by a mixture of admiration and frustration, Matthew started to look forward to these evenings, though he wasn't entirely sure why. It was no longer just about the test. Somehow, Lily's consistent honesty had stirred something within him, forcing him to confront his own cynicism. For the first time in years, he felt uncertain about his long-held belief that everyone had a price. This realization gnawed at him, leaving him with a question he couldn't ignore: could he, the man who had prided himself on his skepticism, have been wrong about human nature all along? One evening, as Matthew sat in his usual booth observing the quiet bustle of the diner, he overheard a conversation between Lily and another waitress near the counter. They spoke in hushed tones, but the diner was slow that night, and their voices carried over the soft clinks of cutlery and low hum of conversation. Matthew hadn't intended to eavesdrop, but as he caught snippets of Lily's words, he couldn't help but listen. She was confiding in her coworker about her mother's worsening health. Her voice wavered as she shared how her mother's medical bills were piling up and that they were quickly becoming more than she could manage on her meager wages. Lily mentioned she was struggling to keep up with school expenses, bills, and her mother's care, and that she was considering the heartbreaking possibility of dropping out to focus on helping her mother full-time. The other waitress offered comforting words, and Lily, though clearly distressed, managed a weak smile, insisting that she would figure things out somehow. A pang of guilt washed over Matthew. Here he was, a wealthy businessman testing this young woman's honesty, while she was quietly enduring a burden far greater than he had imagined. She hadn't once asked for help or even hinted at her troubles, choosing instead to face her struggles alone with quiet strength and dignity. Listening to her, he felt an uncomfortable realization: in his need to prove his beliefs, he had failed to see her as a person, only as a subject in his experiment. That night, when the check arrived, Matthew left an especially large tip, hoping it would provide her with some relief, even if only for a day. He watched from his booth as she found the money, noting the brief look of surprise on her face. She scanned the bill, hesitated, and then, to his astonishment, slipped most of the tip back onto the table, taking only enough to cover his meal. It was as if even now, with financial pressures weighing her down, she couldn't accept charity beyond what she felt she had earned. This act of integrity shattered his last remnants of cynicism. Lily's struggles, combined with her unflinching honesty, struck something within him. It was no longer about proving his assumptions, it was about understanding her character, a character that seemed beyond reproach, even in the most trying of times. For the first time, Matthew began to question his own values and actions, realizing he had been so quick to judge others without understanding the strength it took to hold on to one's principles in the face of hardship. Moved by Lily's unwavering honesty and selflessness, Matthew knew he couldn't ignore her struggles any longer. Her integrity had withstood every test he had put before her, and her strength and resilience in the face of hardship had affected him more deeply than he had expected. He realized that he wanted to help her, but he also knew that offering her money directly might offend her pride. He needed a plan that would allow him to provide support in a way she could accept without feeling diminished. After giving it some thought, Matthew decided on an approach that would let him offer assistance without appearing as charity. He would present her with a job offer, a genuine opportunity that could change her circumstances and benefit her long term. The next evening, when she came to take his order, he introduced himself more formally and made his proposal. "Lily, I'm a businessman," he began, choosing his words carefully. "And I see potential in you, integrity, dedication, qualities I value highly. I'm looking for a personal assistant, someone reliable, and I believe you'd be an excellent fit. The pay would be far better than your job here, and it would give you the chance to learn skills that could open new doors for you. What do you say?" At first, Lily looked hesitant, explaining that she didn't have the qualifications for such a role. But Matthew reassured her, emphasizing that her honesty and work ethic were the only qualifications he needed. Gradually, she warmed to the idea, grateful for the opportunity, but still unaware of his true motives. Matthew felt a quiet satisfaction as she accepted his offer, knowing that, at last, he had found a way to support her without compromising her dignity. As Lily settled into her new role as Matthew's personal assistant, she quickly proved herself to be reliable and diligent. She managed his schedule with ease, organized files, and handled tasks that lightened his workload, becoming an invaluable part of his daily life. For the first time in years, Matthew found himself trusting someone completely, even sharing minor business insights with her. Her integrity was unwavering, and Matthew often marveled at how she approached her work with the same honesty and grace she'd shown in the diner. One afternoon, while organizing his office, Lily stumbled upon an old photograph tucked between some documents. She paused, a strange familiarity pulling her attention. In the picture was her father, younger and standing beside a familiar face, a much younger Matthew. Her heart skipped a beat as memories of her father filled her mind. She knew her father had once been involved in business, but had left that world behind years ago to become a mechanic, seeking a simpler life. But he had never shared many details, and until now, she had never made the connection. Feeling both shocked and curious, Lily took the photo to Matthew, unable to hold back her questions. "This is my father," she said quietly, holding out the picture. How did you know him?" Matthew looked at the photograph and sighed, caught off guard by the unexpected encounter with his past. He began to explain, his tone softened by a mixture of regret and nostalgia. Her father, he revealed, had once been his closest friend and business partner. Together, they had dreamed of building a successful empire, sharing the same ideals and ambitions. But a serious disagreement, one that Matthew now admitted was mostly his fault, had led to a bitter split, pushing her father to leave the business world entirely. Her father's departure had left a lasting impression on Matthew, who remembered him as one of the most principled people he had ever known. "Your father was a man of true integrity," Matthew confessed, his voice filled with remorse. "He valued honesty above everything, even when it cost him. Seeing that same quality in you reminded me of him. I suppose that's why I felt compelled to help you." Lily listened, absorbing the connection with both pride and sorrow. Her father's legacy had unknowingly guided Matthew toward supporting her, and now she understood why he had been so persistent in testing her honesty. She felt a renewed sense of pride in her father's memory, grateful for Matthew's help, yet also recognizing that his support came from a deep-seated need to make amends for his past. In that moment, both of them found a sense of closure, their lives intertwined by shared values and a bond neither had anticipated. As the truth of their connection settled in, Lily felt a complex mix of emotions: pride for her father, gratitude toward Matthew, and a lingering sadness over the past they shared. Confronted by her silent reflection, Matthew felt a surge of guilt over the pain his actions had caused years before. Yet, for the first time in a long while, he was also filled with relief. He had carried the weight of his estrangement from her father for too long, and through helping Lily, he felt he might finally make peace with his past. Sitting across from her, Matthew confessed, "Your father was the best partner I ever had. Losing him was my own doing, and it cost me more than I realized at the time. In a way, helping you has been a chance to honor his legacy." His voice softened, and Lily could hear the sincerity in his words. She saw in him a man who, despite his success, was haunted by mistakes and searching for redemption. Moved by his honesty, Lily found herself forgiving him. She understood now that his support wasn't just about helping her, it was his way of paying tribute to the man her father had been. She felt gratitude, not just for the opportunity Matthew had given her, but for the respect he still held for her father's memory. Their shared acknowledgement of the past brought them closer, allowing them to leave behind old wounds. Lily's pride in her father's integrity was renewed, and she felt a new sense of purpose in her role. Matthew, relieved of an old guilt, found himself ready to move forward, their bond now defined by mutual respect, forgiveness, and a commitment to honoring the values her father had stood for. As the weeks turned into months, Matthew found himself transformed by Lily's influence. Her unwavering integrity and compassionate outlook had slowly softened his once cynical perspective. He began to see his wealth and influence not just as personal achievements, but as tools that could be used to make a meaningful difference. With Lily by his side, he started to envision a future where his success wasn't measured solely by profits but by the positive impact he could make in the lives of others. Together, they developed a plan to launch a foundation focused on causes that reflected both their values. Lily suggested supporting healthcare initiatives and creating scholarships for students struggling to afford an education, reflecting her own experiences and her mother's health challenges. Inspired by her, Matthew committed to using his resources for these causes, recognizing that his wealth could offer opportunities and relief for people facing the same hardships Lily had endured. The foundation quickly gained momentum, fueled by Matthew's business acumen and Lily's personal insight and empathy. Her role in the foundation was essential. She understood the struggles of those they aimed to help and used her experience to shape programs that were both impactful and compassionate. Matthew appointed her as the foundation's director, confident in her ability to lead the organization with integrity. In this new role, Lily was able to channel her hardships into hope for others, becoming a guiding force for countless individuals facing difficult circumstances. Through their work together, Matthew began to shed the hardened exterior he had built over years of distrust. He started engaging directly with the beneficiaries of the foundation, listening to their stories and witnessing firsthand the changes his wealth was creating. For the first time, he felt the satisfaction of seeing his success touch lives beyond his own, and the sense of fulfillment was deeper than any business accomplishment he had ever known. Lily, too, felt a profound sense of purpose. What began as a chance job had led her to a position where she could impact lives and honor her father's memory in a meaningful way. She brought compassion and humility to her role, ensuring the foundation stayed true to its mission of integrity and support. In time, Matthew and Lily became a powerful team, united by a shared vision of compassion, honesty, and positive change. Their work created a legacy that went beyond wealth, a legacy built on empathy, respect, and a commitment to helping others. They no longer saw each other as employer and assistant but as partners in a mission to make a difference, proving that a shared commitment to doing good could transform lives and heal old wounds. As the foundation grew, Matthew and Lily's impact reached far beyond what either had imagined. Together, they helped fund medical care for those who couldn't afford it, provided scholarships to students struggling financially, and offered support to families in need. Their work brought hope to countless people, a testament to the values they had come to cherish. Lily looked back on her journey with pride. What had started as a simple waitressing job had transformed into a mission to change lives, and her father's legacy of integrity guided her every step. She often thought of him, feeling his influence in the work she did and the choices she made. The foundation wasn't just a job, it was a way of honoring the principles he had stood for, a legacy built on honesty, compassion, and resilience. For Matthew, the foundation marked a turning point in his life. His hardened heart had softened, and he found fulfillment in giving back to others. He had discovered that true wealth wasn't measured by his assets, but by the lives he touched. Lily had shown him a path that went beyond personal success and led to a greater purpose, leaving him deeply changed. They never spoke of the tests Matthew had once conducted, but both knew those early days had been a catalyst. Matthew's journey to uncover honesty had ultimately revealed truths about himself, while Lily's strength and integrity had transformed not only her own life but his as well. Together, they left a legacy that went beyond wealth, a testament to the power of trust, empathy, and shared purpose that would continue to make a difference long after them. Years later, as Matthew looked back on his life, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment that no amount of money had ever given him. The once cynical businessman had learned that true wealth wasn't in the numbers on his bank statements or the properties he owned, but in the impact he had made on the lives of others. The journey with Lily had opened his eyes to a different kind of success, one that couldn't be measured in material terms. Lily, too, reflected on how much her life had changed. From a struggling waitress unsure of her future, she had become the director of a foundation that touched thousands of lives. Every day, she honored her father's memory and the values he had instilled in her, channeling her own hardships into hope and support for others. Her journey had taught her that integrity, resilience, and compassion could indeed transform lives, starting with her own and extending to the people her foundation now helped. In each other, they had found more than just an employer or employee, they had found purpose, trust, and shared values. Together, they had created something lasting and meaningful, a legacy built not on wealth but on the principles they had both come to hold dear. Neither of them needed to speak of those initial tests again, they both understood how crucial those moments had been in shaping their paths. As they continued their work side by side, Matthew and Lily knew they had achieved something rare. They had built a legacy of compassion, honesty, and respect, proving that true wealth lay in the lives they touched and the positive change they inspired in the world around them.